All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this high-speed explainer. Today, we are going to take over 1,200 years of incredibly dense, super dramatic Roman history and distill it down into a highly engaging sprint. We're talking about going all the way from a mythic wolf in the woods to the wildly anticlimactic collapse of one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. It's an absolutely wild ride, and I am so pumped to guide you through it.
Right off the bat, here is our epic roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Myths, wolves, and early kings. 2. The vengeful Roman Republic. 3. Caesar's rise and fall. 4. Augustus and the Golden Age. And finally, 5. Chaos, division, and collapse. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, Myths, Wolves, and Early Kings, or as I like to call it, Rome's incredibly messy origin story. So, legend says it all starts with these twin babies, Romulus and Remus. They were the sons of the god of war, they get abandoned in a river, and they end up being nursed by a literal wolf. They grow up super strong and decide they want to build their own city. The problem? They cannot agree on which hill to build it on. So they decide to settle it with a bird-watching contest. Remus spots 6 birds, Romulus spots 12 and is basically like, the gods love me more, bro. Remus accuses him of cheating, Romulus builds a wall anyway, Remus makes fun of it, and so Romulus kills him, and just like that, you have an entire empire founded on a petty sibling rivalry and a brother's corpse.
So now Romulus is king, right? But his new city is basically just a dirt camp with walls. To get people to actually move there, he declares Rome an asylum city. He invites runaway slaves, debt dodgers, exiles, criminals, guys who stole goats, guys who probably are goats, just a wild mix of people. But pretty quickly they run into a massive demographic crisis. They have 0 women. Romulus' solution to this is insane. He hosts a massive festival, invites the neighboring Sabine tribe, and pulls off a highly questionable 8th century BC Tinder kidnapping, just taking all the Sabine women. The Sabine men obviously wake up furious and attack, but the women actually step between the armies and demand they just merge the kingdoms. And incredibly, they do.
Moving right along to Section 2, the vengeful Roman Republic. This is totally their villain arc.
Okay, so eventually the Romans get sick of kings. They kick out their cruel 7th king, swear off monarchy forever, and create a republic led by 2 elected consuls. Seems like a great upgrade, right? Except almost immediately, the Gauls march right into Rome, loot it, burn most of it to the ground, and extort a massive ransom in gold. This single event absolutely traumatized the Romans. It became their ultimate villain arc. To make sure they'd never be humiliated like that again, they decided the best defense was just a ridiculously massive offense. They decided to conquer absolutely everyone around them.
This obsession with militaristic expansion eventually puts them on a collision course with their wealthy neighbor across the sea, Carthage. This sparks the Punic Wars, which were essentially 3 blockbuster sequels of historical chaos. In the First War, Rome didn't even have a real navy, so they literally just stole Carthaginian ship designs and won anyway. In the Second War, Carthage strikes back with Hannibal, who pulls off this terrifying, insane trek over the Alps with 37 elephants, just wrecking Rome for years before Rome barely edges out a win. By the Third War, Rome is so completely sick of Carthage that they literally delete the city from the timeline and enslave the survivors. With their only rival gone, Rome rapidly conquers 10% of humanity.
Which brings us to Section 3, Caesar's rise and fall, the Republic breaker.
At this point, Rome is just hopelessly addicted to expansion. Enter Julius Caesar, who is basically the final boss of the Republic. He becomes so terrifyingly powerful, conquering Gaul, that the Senate panics and orders him to come home. Instead, he marches his army on Rome and takes over. Now, history often paints Caesar as a tyrant, but the common people absolutely loved him. He implemented these incredible reforms, he fixed the chaotic calendar, which actually gives us the 365-day year we use today, he lowered taxes, canceled debts, expanded citizenship, and regulated the grain supply so the poor wouldn't starve. The public loved him for sure, but there was a fatal catch. Caesar was collecting political offices like Pokemon cards. He made himself dictator, consul, and even head priest. To the paranoid Senate, who had just spent 500 years being totally terrified of kings, this looked exactly like a monarchy rising right out of the ashes of their republic.
And that paranoia leads us to this shocking number, 23. That is the number of stab wounds Caesar received in the middle of a Senate meeting. The senators honestly thought they were liberators, saving the Republic. But this was a massive miscalculation. They totally failed to realize that the Roman public didn't care at all about elite Republican ideals. They just knew the Senate killed the guy who lowered their taxes and fed them. So this assassination plunges Rome right back into a massive civil war.
Next up, Section 4, Augustus and the Golden Age, going from total chaos to serious stability.
Out of the absolute mess of Caesar's death steps his cunning 18-year-old adopted heir, Octavius. He totally outmaneuvers his rivals, gets himself named Augustus, and officially births the Roman Empire. Augustus is arguably the greatest emperor because he overhauled the exact system that broke the Republic in the first place. Instead of soldiers fighting for individual generals who promised them loot, Augustus created a professional standing army. Soldiers now fought for the state, with guaranteed pay and guaranteed land when they retired. By making loyalty flow upward to the state, he completely removed the fuel that caused those endless civil wars.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing. 20,000. That is the jaw-dropping number of professional Roman soldiers wiped out in a matter of days in the Teutoburg forest. A trusted Roman ally named Arminius, who was actually a Germanic traitor, used Rome's own arrogance against them. He lured 3 legions into a super dense forest where their strict formations were totally useless and just slaughtered them. It was a massive reality check. Augustus realizes Rome cannot just endlessly expand forever, so he permanently sets the empire's borders at the Rhine River and switches the strategy to defense.
This shift to defense actually kicks off the Golden Age. Think of this as a period of rare structural stability. Inside the empire, you had paved roads, aqueducts, stone buildings, and a robust legal system that could absorb societal shocks. Yes, life was still hard, but there was an administration that actually responded to famine and crime. Outside the empire, it was totally decentralized and unprotected. This drastically shifts our perspective, because neighboring barbarians didn't always want to destroy Rome. A lot of the time, they desperately wanted to join it, just to get that security and those benefits.
Finally, we hit Section 5, Chaos, Division, and Collapse.
After Augustus, things really start to unravel. When a later emperor, Tiberius, isolates himself, the elite Praetorian Guard realizes that they hold the actual power. Let's speedrun this downward spiral, because it is wild. By 69 AD, things are so messy that whoever controls the strongest army just gets the throne. By 193 AD, the Praetorian Guard is literally auctioning off the title of emperor to the highest bidder. The 3rd century brings endless plagues, hyperinflation, and rapid-fire emperor deaths. Realizing the empire is just too massive to govern, it gets chopped into pieces to survive. Until 330 AD, when Emperor Constantine shifts the true power and wealth east to Constantinople, basically leaving Rome behind as a ghost province.
So what was the fatal blow for the western half? It was a massive migration domino effect. The fearsome Huns explode out of the steppe, completely displacing the Goths. Tens of thousands of Goths flee and seek asylum at the Roman border. Rome lets them in, but instead of integrating them properly, corrupt Roman officials exploit them and literally starve them. Driven to absolute desperation, the Goths revolt. They destroy a Roman army, kill the emperor on the battlefield, and eventually sack Rome itself. It's a tragic, complete cascade born entirely from terrible mismanagement.
And that brings us to 476 AD. And honestly, the darkly ironic, total anticlimax of an ending for the Western Roman Empire. The very last emperor is a boy named Romulus Augustulus. He is literally named after Rome's mythic founder and its glorious first emperor. But there's no epic final stand here. He is simply and politely asked by his Germanic military commander to step down and quit. And he just does. Just like that, the Western Roman Empire flickers out.
Which leaves us with one massive, provocative question to wrap up this explainer. Is the Roman Empire actually dead? You see, while the West collapsed in 476 AD, that eastern half, the part governed from Constantinople, which modern historians call the Byzantine Empire, was very much alive. And get this, they didn't even call themselves Byzantines. They called themselves Romans, and they survived and fought like crazy for a whopping 1,000 more years. It's this massive, absolutely fascinating second act to the story, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring, because the tale of Rome is so much bigger than just the city itself. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the source material.